Mr. Chair, you are live.
Ladies and gentlemen, whoever is watching, I'd like to welcome you to this July 17th regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission of the City of Annapolis. Ms. Consoli, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Waldman,
Present.
Ms. Butler,
Present.
Mr. Pline,
Present.
Mr. Bellamy,
Present.
Mr. Riley,
Present.
Mr. Cummings, and we do not have Mr. Spakinutis, sir.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank those of you, three of you at least, who have made every effort sometimes across many time zones and latitudes to be here tonight. You're all volunteers. You don't get paid a darn dime red cent, but it really shows your interest in this to do the right thing for the city of Annapolis. So on behalf of all your fellow residents, thanks. Okay, with respect to an agenda, I would like to change the order of the two pieces of legislation, specifically 015, which has to do with accessory dwelling unit requirements, and 018, which has to do with duplexes in the R2 zoning district. And I'd like to switch the order. I'd like to hear then I suggest that we hear the duplexes in R2 first, and then the more complicated and perhaps contentious legislation, accessory dwelling unit requirements second. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
So moved.
Seconded by Ms. Butler. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. We also, in order to take care of some administrative business, we do have two findings. One of them is the findings and recommendations on the Tyler Avenue overlay prepared by Mr. Cummings. Having had the opportunity to read it, it's not long, it's complete. Are there any suggestions of edits?
No, I think it's very well done.
Yeah. I must say
Great.
that I made a few, but just to flesh it out, I thought that otherwise it was really more than adequate. Do I hear a motion to approve those findings and recommendations?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Bellamy seconds. Without any further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Good. Findings and recommendations on it's 030, the BR district down at the corner of Clay Street and what is it, Cathedral or no, Franklin? No. Yes. Prepared by Mr. Pline. Any changes? Any discussion? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and a second? Mr. Pline, you can second.
Sure, I'll second it.
Pardon me, was that the document that was lacking my name? With a list of commissioners?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Listen, in both of these, and in basically, unless we really start meeting in person persistently, and especially when we're meeting virtually, it's a heck of a lot easier if we add the tagline, the commissioners authorize the chair to sign on their behalf, and I authorize the clerk to sign on my behalf. So with that potential, it's a minor addition to those findings if they didn't make it into the final draft.
Would you like me to alter the draft to indicate that? Take the rest of the signature lines
No,
out?
I think
Kimberly do
I
that?
think Miss Consoli can do that. She can just take the language off of the previous one, Tyler Avenue. I think I got it on that one correctly.
You did. Correct. It's Tyler Avenue. You made that adjustment.
What are you in a helicopter?
No, I'm sorry. I'm in the
I'm on the road right now, so I'm not driving though, but I'm in passenger seat, so I apologize.
FEMA, always on the scene, right? All right, we've had a motion, a second, and I'm going to suggest that the motion include that minor authorizations. All in favor of that, say aye.
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 All right. Any nays? Good. Okay.
I have to abstain.
Yes, Ms. Butler has to abstain because she was not at the meeting at which those two were discussed. Let's go to the duplexes in R2 zoning district, and let's hear from Mr. Lashinsky. Oh, Mr. Ortiz.
The change of pace today. You guys got me.
Yeah,
Eric's
good.
here too, but
Let's-
I'm
a
the
new
one
face.
persistent today. I'm gonna share my screen real quick so you guys can see the presentation. And then let me know if you can see it, and we'll start from there.
All right, speak up.
Oh
Ortiz.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So hopefully you
And we
all
can
saw
see
the
it.
staff report on 01825. Just a quick rundown of the legislation. It's going just general summary is that it is removing the requirement in the use table for duplexes in the R2 zoning district, basically removing the August 10, 1970 requirement and just permitting duplexes by right in the R2 zoning district. And to qualify for a duplex in the R2 zoning district, a lot would have to have at a bare minimum 10,800 square feet of land. It's in compliance with the comprehensive plans, goals, land use 3, housing 1, and housing 4. It basically accomplishes the goal of the comprehensive plan by wanting to promote existing small scale housing. Many of you were part of the 2040 comp plan process and have seen these pages before. Really the legislation is trying to reformalize housing types that have existed in Annapolis for decades, if not longer. And just a brief overview, summary separate of the staff report is this is a page from the comprehensive plan just showing residential districts and commercial districts in today's zoning that do not allow duplexes by right. Even though it's generic and saying residential zones here and commercial zones, predominantly on this image on the left, most of the land is R2. R2 is one of the most widespread and prevalent zones throughout the entire city, and duplexes are not allowed by right currently unless they were previously built before 1970. Some of the impact of this legislation. So this figure on the left shows in yellow zones in the R2 zoning district, or parcels in the R2 zoning district that are ineligible for duplexes. And then in green, it shows parcels that have over 10,800 square feet of land and therefore qualify for a duplex. Some of the breakdown of that is that there's roughly 3,000. It's in your staff report, but I believe it's 3,500 parcels in the entire zone. That discounts schools, parks, government properties, conservation easements, built apartment complexes. They're excluded from this calculation. Doing that basically qualifies 842 parcels, or 23% of all parcels in the R2 zoning district are over that 10,800 square foot requirement, and therefore would be allowed by right to build a duplex. Duplexes were previously allowed by right in R2 and were restricted basically since the 1970s, and this legislation would remove that requirement and basically allow them by right in the R2 zoning district. That's pretty much it on my presentation. So if any of you have any questions or comments, I'm here to answer them along with Eric.
I do have one question. So one piece of data that you haven't shown us, and I don't know if you have it, but I'd be curious to know what number of currently non-conforming duplexes are on lots that are less than 10,800 square feet. Do you have any, if you don't have that exact number, do you have a sense for that?
I don't think we have anything like that, unfortunately. I would love to know that as well. And in fact, I think it's going to be challenging for us to gather that data.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even, I asked the question because I don't even have sort of an empirical sense of that from the duplexes I've seen, the non-conforming duplexes I've seen around the city, because you just have a hard time, estimating the lot size. So, would be interesting to know, but maybe tough to get. But thanks.
Eric and
I have a
Casey,
question.
do you, pardon me, Diane, do you have the legislative history of why that restriction was put in place in 1970 or whatever year that was?
I don't know for sure. Eric might know more off the top of his head or not. We don't really know. I don't know at all.
No, we don't know that, unfortunately. I mean, I think it was probably the outcome of a comprehensive plan or a sector study for a particular area, but we don't know.
Yeah.
If I were to exercise a hunch, it would be that in 1970, Annapolis was really interested in suburbanizing
Mhm.
and may have felt that that was the right thing to do. That's just a hunch.
What, suburbanizing by encouraging single-family homes?
Yes, owner-occupied single-family homes.
Okay,
That's my hunch.
probably sounds like a safe hunch to me. Okay.
And
Difficult.
my question.
Go
Oh,
on.
go ahead. I just had a question about 10,800 square feet. Where does that number come from?
So that was from I believe Mr. Huntley's alteration, but currently single family homes in the R2 district require 5,400 square feet. And this basically allows someone with the same building like a very similar footprint, like two houses. If they were single family separate of one another, you could build two separate single family homes. And this basically allows, if you have that kind of land, you could build a duplex. It basically
Got it.
doubles it.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yep.
the point is that the bulk standards are not changing at all. So it's really just a function of the existing requirements for a single family home. So it's double that essentially.
Thank you.
And I do want to add one more point that wasn't in the staff report, but Eric and I discussed, was that a lot of the parcels in green here on the left that are duplex eligible, many of them are within the Tyler Avenue overlay district. And, if that were to pass, would be a lot more permissive, but there's like a little bit of overlap between the two along the Tyler Avenue corridor. And, these are kind of doing a very similar thing, just more widespread in regards to duplexes, at least.
I also just want to clarify something that Casey mentioned. It's in the legend on this map where there's an asterisk that may not be intuitive. There are many properties in the city that are not residential uses that are zoned as R2, which is a single family residential zoning district, for reasons that we don't quite understand. The Navy Stadium, Truxton Park, places that will never be developed as residential use are in the R2 zoning district. And so Casey did best effort to sort of exclude those larger properties that we know really don't factor into this at all.
Okie dokie. No further questions? I'll open the public hearing. Has anybody signed up to speak? No. I would note that one of the written public comments came from Ms. McCopp, and it was in favor of this. That's the only one that no, there was
And one
the
from Ted
comment
Shields
from
that was-
Mr. Ted
Mr. Shields, yeah.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
also in
that
favor.
also was very much in favor of it. And he has, as an architect and a long history in the city. So I'd like to enter those into the record. And if there's no other public testimony, I would close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I do believe Alderman Arnett and Alderman
Oh,
Shannon wanted to.
does want to speak to this?
Yeah.
Certainly.
I'm bringing Alderman Shannemeyer up since he has his hand up like a good boy.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. How are you?
I'm fine. And yourself?
Doing well, thank you. Alderman Huntley is on his way. He got stopped by a constituent and then thought this was live, so he may be a little bit late. He literally called me trying to asking for clarification right before I was brought on. A commentary that I would like to say is this is a fantastic first step in legislation in addressing our housing crisis. We all are aware that one of the biggest problems in our city is that there are not enough homes to meet the needs and budgets of our working families. Duplexes are a good step forward in how do we re-legalize smaller starter homes for our working class, for younger families such as my own, for families that want to downsize. They are very much in character with small scale development that we want to see more of, moving away from the larger big developer model and getting into citizen as developers that can really help move in as the market goes and not do this all at once, plop down in the middle of a neighborhood that can be quite disruptive. That is how development's been shaped in our city and nationwide for the past 50, 60 years. And I think this is just a very good common sense bill for how to introduce gradual, small scale changes into our city to adjust and adapt to the market and help bring housing costs down and make housing more attainable for families. So I do appreciate the time and attention you all are paying it to giving to this, and thank you.
Okay. Okay. Did Mr. Arnett wish to speak to this?
I believe so. I'm bringing him forward now. And Brooke, you said Harry's planning on joining as well?
Alderman Huntley is planning on joining. He went to City Hall thinking that this was in person. I cannot give you a
Just called
timeline.
me. He's on his way to his computer to find his calendar to link in. So
Yeah.
I actually was pleased with the staff report and didn't have anything to say. I'll echo Alderman Chandemar's comments. This is pretty much what we expected with the comp plan. And I had some conversation with the Alderman Huntley about this, not as much as I would like, but we'll get our opportunity when it comes to the city council committees. But I do echo Alderman Chandemar's sentiments. And, you know, once again, applaud Eric and the staff for the comp plan.
As an accommodation to Mr. Huntley, may I suggest that we temporarily table this public hearing? And since there's not a lot of public here, we can jump back into it even in the midst of our next item. So
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm going to text him the link so he may hop on from his phone in a moment, if that is acceptable to you and the committee.
I mean, right.
Emailed it to him as well, so he can, hopefully it's at the top.
Sorry, I'm having difficulty getting my fingers to let me copy the link.
He's here now. He's coming forward just now.
Okay.
Hello, folks. Thanks so much for letting me join. I apologize for all the confusion. I both did not realize that we had moved around the agenda and also thought that it was in person. Terribly sorry. Is
You're okay. You're okay.
it's now an okay time for me to testify on our R2 duplex bill?
The floor is yours.
If you can't tell, I ran to City Hall. I'm a little sweaty. Well, thank you very much, members of the Planning Commission, for letting me testify before you today. I grew up in a duplex. When I was 3 years old, my parents moved from the townhouse that they had purchased as a very starter home to this house, and they actually bought both sides of it. And at the time, one side had just gotten renovated, the other side had they was so badly dilapidated they couldn't even get a bank loan on it. They had to jack up the foundation. They had to replace beams that were structural and had been so eaten away by termites they didn't connect from floor to ceiling. But from the time when I was 3 to the time when I was 14, they rehabilitated this. They built wealth, and it was the housing option they could afford at the time, and it was a great housing option for all of us. One of the things that we see in our comprehensive plan is this idea that one of the things that makes Annapolis strong and that can make Annapolis stronger is the diversity of housing types. So I will tell you one of the inspirations I had for this bill was walking around my neighborhood in Ward 1 and seeing how many duplexes we have right now, especially in the R2 district. I started thinking that's kind of interesting. This is a single family district. So I went and looked into city code and found out that actually duplexes are already allowed in the R2 district under 2 conditions. That they have to, 1, look like single family homes roughly. I don't think anybody's really got a concern about that. It's meeting those height and setback requirements. And 2, they had to have been built before 1970. Now, we love our history in Annapolis, don't we? And so what I recognize there was this opportunity to do is to say these types of housing types are already a part of so many of our neighborhoods. And I'd be happy to share with my colleagues afterwards. I've got just earlier today got a bunch of great examples of duplexes all throughout R2 neighborhoods in the city. What this bill would do is simply strike that requirement for them to have been built before 1970. It would re-allow duplexes. And I fought very hard to make sure that that was the title. Our city attorney wanted to just be allow. I had to convince him re-allow was a word, because that's the truth of what we're doing here, is just saying this has been a clear part of the fabric of our city. We know that this housing type provides additional options to families. We know that it fits with the character of many of these neighborhoods, and we know that it is more fiscally responsible for our city. So not only is it better for families, it's better for city government, which means it's better for roads and firefighters and sidewalks and all the things that we hold dear. So I think that this is consistent with our comprehensive plan. It's consistent with how I've lived my life, and it's consistent with the neighborhood that I live in and love and the future of Annapolis. I hope you all will favorably consider it, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions as you get to them. Thank you.
Comments, questions? Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. So therefore, I will close the public hearing and open it up for discussion.
So I'll jump in here. I have just a couple of comments. Like others have mentioned here, I too grew up in a duplex in New Bedford, Massachusetts. It was actually a duplex up down with an accessory apartment on the 3rd floor. And it's in a single family neighborhood. And nobody really even knows. And they're, I mean, those things are all over the place, and there's no reason that they don't fit in. So, and it's one of these things that has allowed my father, who still lives there, who's 94, to stay in the house as a somebody on a fixed income, he has the rental property upstairs that lets him afford to stay in that house. And that's pretty common, and both for people that are aging and at the other end of the spectrum, when you're purchasing a house that you might not be able to afford, having that rental income very much might be an entree into something that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. So, those are two really good economic incentives that fit in with the comprehensive plan that make this a no-brainer. The second one is, I wish this would actually apply to the R1 district too, because there are a number of duplexes in the R1, my neighborhood in West Annapolis and Warder. There are a number of them that people really like, and given the bulk regulations not changing, I don't know why anybody would have a problem with this. Well, I do know why they would, but they exist and people like them. So, I wish it went a little bit further. But I realize that, baby steps. And so to me, this is just common sense and kind of a no-brainer. I'm a little bit bothered by the 10,800 square foot requirement, but I understand why it's there. This is just the lowest hanging fruit for a step. So, while we could quibble with that, and I'm not sure I would even make a recommendation at this point to change that, because that just opens a whole nother can of worms. But something for staff to think about going forward is, as we've talked about in other places, the minimum lot size issue. But anyway, I'm fully supportive of this as written, and it seems like a no-brainer first step.
Anybody else? Well, it seems like one of the reasons, of the many reasons, that people have proffered to pass this is because they grew up in a detached home. So just as a matter of personal histories, is that might become a sufficient reason. No-brainer, not a difficult subject to entertain. Good first step. I'll echo all of those. And only add my comment is that perhaps it merits study to see if R1 might also be subject to this kind of incremental opening. And we might see that come down the pike, in 6 months. So Mr. Hundley, stay on the hunt. Any other comments? All right. Do I hear a motion with respect to 01825?
I'll make the motion that we recommend as written.
Cummings?
Seconds. Okay. Any further discussion on that motion? All right. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Somebody needs to write the findings and recommendation for this. Mr. Bellamy, why don't you take a chance at this? This is pretty straightforward, and I'll be more than happy to help you with it, okay?
Okay.
All right. Now I think we can move on to the main event, which is 01525, accessory dwelling unit requirements. Staff. Ms. Butler's got her hand raised.
Hi, I think in an abundance of caution, I am going to recuse myself from this discussion and vote on accessory dwelling units and short-term rentals, since I currently own an ADU. So I will take myself off screen and off camera so that you can conduct your business.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, thanks.
Good. All right, we still have a quorum. Mr. Riley, Mr. Waldman, Mr. Pline, Mr. Bellamy, and Mr. Cummings. So we're in good shape. Mr. Lashinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a presentation for you. I'm just going to explain the legislation and where staff landed in our review of the legislation. I know the sponsor is here, Alderman Shannon. I know he'll want to speak and explain some of his thinking following this. This is similar to 01825. I mean, this is a brief ordinance. It's not extensive. It just does a couple of things to change the city's code, but it has a host of implications. So there's essentially two significant changes. One is, the first is to remove the residency requirement for building an ADU. And currently, the city code requires a property owner to live on site to build an ADU. That was deliberate to encourage ADU development by homeowners. And then the second provision, the second significant provision is that so if somebody no longer has to live on site to develop an ADU, they might own a property and live out of state or somewhere else, they can then short-term rent either the ADU or the main residence of the property, but not both. So they're granted that allowance. And then in between those two changes, there is another change, which is adding a definition for ownership, which does not exist in the code today. So the implications of this that, made staff somewhat uncomfortable, I would say, is the expectation that the legislation would encourage more property development by people outside of the city, investors, speculators, and really expand the number of short-term rentals in lieu of standard rentals, of longer-term rentals. And that, we know, there's a lot of documentation that really points to the impact of short-term rentals on the housing market, the effect availability of long-term housing, the cost of long-term housing. We have 550 short-term rentals approximately in the city today. That has been fairly stable, goes up and down, 50 to 75 units or so, but it's basically been in the 500 to 550 range for a while. And they might grow with this change in the code. We're not, in our review of the legislation, we're not placing a value judgment on whether short-term rentals are good or bad for our hospitality sector. We recognize that they are a part of our hospitality sector and really complement lodging options in the city, and the ones that are popular and successful do a great job of hosting visitors to the city. And for that reason, we have a large percentage of our short-term rentals are clustered in just three parts of the city, primarily the downtown area, the Eastport area, and West Annapolis. And we think that they're going to grow in other places. But we, in the comprehensive plan, are encouraging more housing diversity and trying to meet housing needs in the coming years. And that is where we want to focus. We see incredible opportunity to expand ADU development. And that's also something I want to underscore here, that we think there are other ways to encourage ADU development other than removing this residency requirement. And we have spoken with Alderman Schindelmeyer, and I know he has some ideas as well. And we really want to encourage these other ideas instead of this residency requirement. Really try to make it easier for folks to do ADU development, particularly people who own their homes and could benefit from additional income and really see the value in them. So That's a summary of our position on the legislation, but we could not give a favorable recommendation to this legislation as written. But we're hopeful that through amendments, the legislation may become something that we can support.
Questions? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing.
Eric, one question. Picking up on your last statement, what's the reason for not being able to support it as is?
Just the concern that it's going to accelerate the licensing of short-term rentals instead of standard long-term rentals, and that the impact that that's going to have on the housing market. That's pretty much the concern.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay, I will now open the public hearing. I understand that we have some aldermen waiting to talk.
I believe Alderman Arnett and Alderman Schneider, I believe, both want to say something. So I'll bring Alderman Arnett first.
Mr. Arnett?
I'll defer to the sponsor. Is Brooke still with us?
He's still here. He's coming forward.
Okay.
Mr. Arnett?
Yes. I'll be happy to go. Once again, I think the staff did an excellent job of writing up their report. If you'll indulge me, I will harken back to my last election ever. Back in 2017, I was door knocking. That was the same time the original ADU legislation came up, and I was trying to debate it. I went to a door over on Eastern Avenue, and a young man knocked on the door, and I started to give my pitch, and he said, "Well, where are you on ADUs?" And I said, "Well, I'm not really sure. What do you think?" And his wife came to the door with a new infant in arms and said, "We just had a new baby. My wife wants to stay home with the baby. We can't live here unless we can have an accessory dwelling unit." And that decided me. And what it decided me is accessory dwelling units are family focused. It gives family the ability to support other family, either siblings or elderly. It gives family the ability to get support, aids to daily living or healthcare support. And it gives families the ability to get financial support when they're in need, just like what happened to this young couple. To me, 1525 is kind of a double substitute of family for investors. It's families, it's investors who have the money, and I priced out an accessory dwelling unit on my house 10 years ago. Low bid was $144,000. And then if you add a short-term rental, really ups the investment value. I would offer that omnibus legislation like this, where you just throw it out, you don't know where it's going to occur, is not planning. The purpose of the comp plan is to plan for housing and the community amenities that we want to go with the housing: daycare, Dock in the Box, mini mart, and most especially transportation that is clustered around concentrations of housing. With this legislation, we have no idea really who's going to do it, where they're going to do it, and how it's going to fit. I think there's just this hope that if we do enough of it in some way, we'll increase the housing supply and somehow drive down the price of housing. I got a list from the planning director on the number of registered accessory dwelling units in the city. And I have to tell you, I was shocked. The number of registered units is 8. I have 5 accessory dwelling units on my block, none of which are, one of which may be rented, and it may actually be rented as a short-term rental, but not to a young couple, actually to a wealthy person who sold it and now lives in California. So I don't know how we're really even going to monitor where these accessory dwelling units are now and where they're coming from. But it caused me to take a look. I was working with one of the candidates, and we were talking about what are we trying to do with the comp plan? What is the number we're trying to address? And Secretary Day put out a number that the state of Maryland is shy 96,000 affordable housing units, and that counts public housing, Section 8, and housing that is below the market rate. If you translate that ratio down to the cities of Annapolis is slightly less than 40,000 people, that equates to 648 new affordable housing units. I'm not talking about new public housing, not talking about new Section 8, but new housing units. The comp plan calls for 7,000, and I would even be willing to say, gee, we should double that. And the comp plan is focused, it's planned, it has development areas in mind, and it will, I think, do a lot of good to get people in their housing. So for those reasons, I was actually quite comfortable in reading the staff report and looking at the staff's conclusion. And that's my piece.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Arnett? Okay. Next up, Mr. Shandelmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a little history on how the owner occupancy requirement came to be on the original accessory dwelling unit bill. It was not part of a well thought out piece of policy research. It was me scrambling for the council of the time, trying to get 5 votes and getting someone that was on the fence onto it. I did not know it'd be as big of a burden to building these as it has been. I'm frankly embarrassed by that number that was pitched. That says I made a bad bill. So I was looking at a couple of the restrictions, and owner occupancy has been something that has come up, especially in regards to financing. And I go back to my own history with how I got my start in an accessory dwelling unit. I was not living in an owner-occupied ADU. The family that owned the house, their daughter, the family that actually owned it, the mom and dad, they lived in Arnold. Their daughter lived in the main house. I lived in the ADU. That would not have qualified as a legal accessory dwelling unit, even after we had legalized under our current law, after we legalized it under our code. Now, had let's say that family did in fact live there. I was renting from the ADU, but then they decide we're going to move, but we want to rent out the ADU. Tough luck, they could not rent out both properties because it would no longer be owner occupied. That'd be taking one functional house off of the market. And then the main issue where this comes down to, and I forwarded this over to the commission, is the new FHA loan requirements for qualifying for an FHA loan to build your accessory dwelling unit. You have to have an area where you can rent these without restrictions, and owner occupancy requirements qualify as a restriction. FHA loans are the easiest way for individual homeowners to qualify for a loan. Now, in an amendment that Mr. Lushinsky mentioned as a good compromise, though, upon discussing with my friends in the Mercatus Center, and with Cole Peterson, author of Backyard Revolution, which is seen as the North Star guide of accessory dwelling unit construction, he also pointed out that you cannot have non-transient resident, or you cannot have a residents of the ADU have to be non-transient to qualify for the FHA loan. So you couldn't have short-term renters there. So a compromise that I came up with around 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock that I sent over to Mr. Lashinsky and Director Kubiak was we keep the residency requirement for short-term rentals and remove it for long-term rentals. They seemed pretty satisfied with that. I think that strikes a good balance of finding ways to expand out the long-term housing stock for long-term rentals in the city while keeping a lid on the short-term rental expansion. It satisfies the concern of how do we get FHA loans to qualify for building ADUs, and for the folks who want to build these as short-term rentals, well, I don't care if they can't qualify for FHA loan. Not my problem. So I think that threaded the needle on some of the main concerns that staff had with keeping the residency requirement in place, keeping a damper on that, while also satisfying my requirement of keeping financing as flexible as possible. And I don't know if we want to also get into the other amendment that was submitted to the commission here, or if we want to keep it just as the legislation is currently written. Happy to do either.
Alderman, I don't think that the commission actually received the other amendment. Are you talking about the one you just mentioned?
Correct. The commission has not, to my knowledge, which is why I put it forward. I submitted that to the law office around 3 or 4, sometime in between that time frame. I do not believe the law office had time to put pen to paper, but it's on the docket. It will be coming. I think it's a really good amendment, a really good compromise, and I will let Mr. Lashinsky verify, but I do think that strikes a good balance, and that was my understanding of you guys' reply to my email. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it definitely addressed our primary concerns, and so it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah. So again, when we put that, keep the owner occupancy for a short-term rental, but remove the owner occupancy requirement for longer-term rentals, I think that really loosens up the financing flexibility while also keeping in place for the short-term rental housing stock.
Mr. Lashinsky, do you have any idea how effective or ineffective the enforcement, the registration requirements for STRs is? Do we have any kind of a handle on how many of them actually are?
We do have a pretty good handle. We have a third-party management platform that keeps track of the short-term rentals. In fact, Casey we've been working on an annual report that's going to be shared probably next week.
What?
An annual report for sure. It's actually a requirement that was put in the code. So we've been putting that together, and Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially 50% of the short-term rentals that are listed are not licensed or not conforming. So it's a pretty big number. We are hiring, or maybe we've already hired another inspector who would be dedicated to short-term rental enforcement. And as I said, we have about 550 short-term rentals at any one time that are, kind of listed on the Airbnb, Vrbo type platform. So,
So then there are 1,000 total.
No, 50% of that 550 would not be necessarily licensed officially, but
What are the
550 is like the total number that exists, and then about 280 are licensed with the city.
So approximately half are licensed, and
Basically,
half
yeah.
half are paying taxes, half are not paying taxes.
yeah, and some of those might be in between renewals. We know there's some hiccups sometimes when a license expires and people are lax about renewing it. So there might be some in that category. They're not necessarily totally negligent, but yeah.
There is a decent amount in that leeway because we've been stepping up enforcement.
Do you know what the penalties are for failing to register and continuing to rent short-term rentals? What are the penalties?
I do not know offhand what the
Mm.
penalties are.
So perhaps just when this legislation gets amended, one might look at the penalties to make them, if indeed it's going to pass, to make them effective. They need to be heavy.
I'll
Okay,
look up the fines.
okay. All right. Any
Chairman, we have Russ Arnett, Mr. Arnett's hand is up.
excuse me?
Yeah. I just wanted to add,
Alderman
because,
Arnett's hand is up.
Oh, please, sir.
thank you. Because the council never really wants the commission to have an easy time, at the same time we're looking at this, we're looking at legislation that limits the number of short-term rentals on the block face. And that's going to have a very interesting impact on the mix and also on the desirability of developing short-term rentals. I do think short-term rentals are distinct from accessory dwellings. They're a subset. And I do subscribe to the fact that primary purpose, at least in my mind, for accessory dwellings is to help the families that are the primary residents or could become the secondary residents through a lot of different life circumstances. And in that regard, I think they're very beneficial, and I'm very pleased in my vote to vote for allowing accessory rental dwelling units. But anyway, there are going to be complications down the road regarding short-term rental units.
Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else is interested. Anybody else to give testimony?
Yeah, I'll wait in here. I don't want to confuse the short-term rental challenges of half of the properties not being licensed and half being licensed, and the implications of that, or even what the penalties are with what Alderman Schneidermeyer is putting forth here. I don't have the language in front of me, but I know the intent of which you put forth 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock this afternoon sounds very sensible to me. I think that it will tamp down on some of the concerns of investors, non-residents, et cetera, simply buying investment properties and renting out multiple units. And I think that it could encourage more kind of middle housing or more available housing to people in the city that right now have no access to it. So I would support it with that kind of change that you threw in at the 11th hour. So I'd be interested to see that language.
Thank you. I do want to, sorry, stutter. I do want to thank my friends in the Mercatus Center for pointing out that note in the federal, the FHA regulations that transient use could not be applied for loans anyway. So that did help me kind of thread that needle. So thank goodness for think tanks.
Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing because I don't think there are any new witnesses. And so let's moving as we're moving into discussion.
Would if it would please the chair, I would also like to mention we do have an amendment that was submitted, Amendment 1. Do we want, if it's all right, I'd like to get into that, or is that not relevant to the commission's business? Also fine.
No, Mr. Schneidermeyer, right. I can't to receive stuff on the day that we're supposed to be looking at some stuff, things that have very broad implications, and to come up at the last second. So I feel like I sorry, but I need some time to think about these things and absorb them. And it's not a part of what was, it's not a part of what was submitted. It's not a part of what was submitted to us. It's not a part of what was submitted to us weeks and weeks ago as part of the agenda, which we have worked very hard, to stay in session through the month of July. So I haven't seen it. Staff hasn't had time to really analyze it.
Okay.
Okay. So to me, it's like, thank you. It may work out. It may be that what you want to do, perhaps as a sponsor of this, you might suggest that we table this till sometime in September, October, after law has had a chance to work out the language, staff has had a chance to analyze it. We can come up with some idea of how it affects the current situation and might affect the future situation, or you may not, in which case I think that I personally want to look at what I've been given.
I was referring to Amendment 1, which has been posted up on it. I didn't know if folks had had an opportunity to take a look at that yet. If not, I apologize. That is okay. That isn't a hypothetical like what I had just mentioned here with the maintaining the residency requirement for short-term rental. That one has been put up, but I would rather not do any tabling. We have everything kind of under the gun, and things are going the way they do in Annapolis. Kind of want to keep things moving along.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Chair, I found the fine is $100 a day.
$100 a day from the day that the violation was issued.
Correct.
It's like nothing.
Yep.
It's like it's cheaper to cut down the tree on the riverbank than it is to, lose one look at the water.
Right.
All right. I'm going to begin this off. I am not comfortable with this one. I'm not comfortable with the way it stands. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with any proposed amendments. I haven't had time to absorb them. I don't feel as if I've gotten a real staff weighing in on the FHA and HUD requirements. And I think that as this legislation stands, to my mind, it works at absolute cross purposes to what the previous piece of legislation is intended to do, which is to frankly increase affordable housing for working families. And I don't see this as happening. And especially the ownership one really sticks in my craw, because the problem that has existed in the city is that investment money is simply buying up properties unseen and turning them into short-term rentals if possible, perhaps into long-term. We don't have any idea of that at all, like how many new long-term rentals have in fact come on the market compared to the number of short-term rentals that have come on the market. So allowing LLCs and corporate ownership works at cross purposes to the community, the neighborhood building, that the comprehensive plan really works to encourage. All I hear anecdotally is that short-term rentals have really destroyed, in some cases, some blocks and some neighborhood feelings. I see in my own neighborhood, I see an increasing number of these short-term rentals and properties not being taken care of. I don't know the folks there. It's really a very different or weakness to the neighborhood that's caused by a continuing acceleration of the short-term rentals. And I think that corporate ownership would only make it worse. I also think that even allowing ADUs to be owned by non-resident owners is not something that we want to undertake at this time. We have very little experience, just a couple of years really since COVID, as to how this is going to work, whether it's being enforced or not. And so to allow non-owner occupied ADUs I'm not getting the affordable housing implications. The only thing, the testimony that we've received is that the implications will be negative, in fact, that it's going to work at cross purposes, antagonistic to what we saw in the R2 ADU legislation. I mean, I only foresee that loosening up as this legislation proposes is antagonistic to what we want to achieve. Now, it may be that the legislation is tweaked. It may be that it's amended. If it's significantly amended, it should come back to us so we can take that look at it. As everybody knows, I do everything I can to get things on the agendas as fast as we possibly can, as soon as staff reports are done. And then we will meet twice a month if we need to meet twice a month, even through the end of this council session. But as this legislation stands, as we have it before us, as a matter of record, frankly, I cannot recommend an approval. There may be changes, there may not be. But as it stands, I think it is deleterious.
Yeah, I'll
As
go.
Barcelona, New York City, I could start to tick off all of the places where all sorts of, foreign and, corporate ownership and short-term rentals has ruined the affordability for the people who live here. And I don't see this as increasing, and all I see is decreasing long-term rentals. I see it as increasing short-term rentals. That's my say. Mr. Klein.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I agree 100% with everything you said, and I've long been on the record about having the owner occupancy requirement. I think to a certain extent, this whole discussion can be framed around picking your poison. I think it's uncertain whether removing that will have an effect on producing more ADUs that could be rented, even with the amendment Mr. Schandelmeyer mentioned. I think it's TBD. So it's a pick your poison of, do you try to get more things out there, or at the risk of, reducing neighborhood cohesion that, we've talked about that. Everybody's talked about that for a long time with short-term rentals. So I agree with you that I think it's not, I can't support going in that direction. But I would say, and I think Ms. McCopp's testimony, which in the context of this legislation was a little bit of a non sequitur about the issues with doing an ADU they're well taken. If you really want to increase the number of ADUs to be rented, by owner occupancy, you got to make them easy to build. And we do not do that. They are very difficult to build. Too many requirements, uncertainty from the staff, and both the planning staff and the permitting staff about what's allowed, how it can be done. That needs to be made so that the average homeowner, whether getting a loan or not, and typically I would think these things would be done, especially at the lower income levels, you're going to work on this incrementally, and you're not going to go get a loan for $150,000 to build an ADU. You're going to take your garage, you're going to start working on it on weekends, and that kind of thing. But when you make the requirements such that the average homeowner cannot understand them and needs a land use lawyer to force city staff to make a decision on how something gets done, there's a reason we don't have many ADUs, because it's, why would anybody want to go through that hassle? So if we really want to increase ADUs, let's hit that point first and not potentially have all the negative consequences that Bob mentioned. So I can't support this. And while, having the owner occupancy requirement only apply to ADU, to short-term rentals, sort of brings it closer to flipping my bid. It doesn't flip my bid. So I can't support this either way. So that's my piece.
Mr. Cummings?
Yeah, I keep thinking about this. There's definitely very strong arguments against it. I keep looking over at section 1744-090, where it's 2B, who's an owner of the ADU may be licensed either the primary dwelling of the ADU as a short-term rental, but not both at the same time. So I'm getting what it's trying to do in terms of increasing supply, but at the same time, I'm very wary of exactly what Bob you mentioned in the meeting as well, that we have a lot of corporate entities that are now going in and just buying things up. And I'm really hesitant to be in a situation where I want to encourage large corporations coming in and buying up short rentals. I definitely want to find a way to get to a situation where we put more. That's fine. This.
You're breaking up.
Sorry. Anyway,
Okay. You're broken up. Mr. Bellamy, anything? You're muted, sir. Unmute yourself, sir. There you
Yeah,
go.
I was trying to just follow what Quentin was saying. I don't know. I'm
I'm reading what I'm hearing from Mr. Walton.
Who's that speaking? If the legislation doesn't help in terms of increasing available housing stock and keeping the neighborhoods out of the hands of corporate interests, I'm not in favor of that, but I don't know if this gets to that. I can see the requirement for owner occupied and how that keeps neighborhoods stable. But I think I would be in favor of long-term rentals.
However, that's not in the legislation.
Yeah,
That distinction is not in this legislation.
right.
Okay. Mr. Riley, are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay. Mr.
Yeah,
Riley?
I guess I just want to touch again on Mr. Schandelmeyer's kind of revision of the day, and I'll kind of pose it to you and Alex, just because I'm hearing you, and I agree with you also, generally speaking, but it could potentially serve two purposes. First of all, if the ADU is available for short-term rental, but only for owner-occupied properties, the owner-occupied property obviously has much more vested interest that the property is going to be well cared for and maintained, and the people are going to look after it. It gives them an opportunity to earn, additional income, while it also adds more accommodation options for the hospitality industry and generally supporting Annapolis. The other side, the corporation argument, I agree with wholeheartedly, but if it's not, my understanding from Mr. Schandelmeyer is if it's owned by a corporation or by a non-resident or a non-owner, then they would not be able to use it for short-term rental. It would have to be used for long-term rental. So it kind of bakes in some kind of a provision that protects that. Now, is that good enough? Is there enough, guessing what those numbers might look like? I can't, not to mention the enforcement of them, because we're not even enforcing the licenses as they are today. 50% of them are, not licensed. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing it back out there to say it seems to make more sense to me with Mr. Schandelmeyer's changes of today. So I guess Alex, I'll throw that back to you, just relative to it's going to be owner occupied. It would help the hospitality industry, potentially Annapolis, tourism, et cetera. And then on the other side, it would keep corporations from being able to buy these investment properties and building out these ADUs that aren't going to really support our comprehensive plan or any of our long-term housing needs.
Well, can I respond to that at the
Yeah, I was asking you actually.
Yeah, I mean at the risk of getting to a debate here. I mean, like I said, I think, like I said, yeah, I'm sympathetic to that argument, and it almost flips my bit. But from what I've understood about from people I know who have attempted to do ADUs, the number one impediment to doing them is not this this issue of owner occupancy or STRs or, all of this stuff, the number one impediment is it's just too damn hard to do because of the requirements around it. And if it were, if ADUs were easy because they were, the process was better understood, that to me is the low-hanging fruit that's not being addressed here. So we could pass this, and I honestly think very few ADUs would still be built. So why do we waste our time doing that, other than maybe producing a couple of more STRs? I really think we should address the root cause or the root of what would produce more ADUs, because that's essentially the motivation here, as I understand from the sponsors, to try to get more of them to be built. And I think this legislation just is sort of ineffectual from a positive side and could have some negative consequences. But I think really needs to be addressed at that root level. And until that's done, I can't really support this. Like until they make it easier to build an ADU, and when that happens, if that were to happen and people started to build those things a lot, then we address this issue.
What can we do? Pardon me, Chairman. I would say, so what can we do to address issues of making the process easier for people who want to build those units?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to follow that thread here, we're pretty limited in what we can do. We have to sort of stay in our lane. And what we've been presented is a piece of legislation that says remove the owner occupancy requirement. And if you add that legislation for long-term rentals, that's what we've been asked to do. While we can make comments about the process of building ADUs, that's not in our purview. We can recommend that the city make that easier to happen, but we can't direct the staff to do that. We can only comment on that. So I think we have to decide whether we support this legislation with some rationale, and that's essentially what I'm saying, is that I can't support it because something else needs to be done first. By the way, this is what I think needs to be done first. Go do that and then come back to us. But we don't. That's a bit out of our lane at this point to make any decisions on that.
Okay.
Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Well, Mr. Bellamy, you done?
Yes, I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. I do want to chime in, and I did want to answer Stephen, because he basically, if I'm correct, threw out the proposition of, like, if that amendment were passed, that what would be the effect, and what would you think about it? And I want to what I want to respond is, first of all, stay in our lane. That amendment is not in front of us. I'm repeating myself, but there's been no analysis of, like, what that might mean. No analysis of it might mean. And as the legislation stands, I don't see it positively affecting the availability of affordable accessory dwelling units. The way this legislation stands, what it's going to affect is short-term rentals. What it's going to affect is corporate ownership of short-term rentals. Now, with respect to what Mr. Klein said about, really the building codes and all of that needs to be addressed. If there were a motion made as part of our final deliberations that include, for instance, the written comments of Ms. McCopp, which were extensive, 6 points about what can be done concretely to make it easier, and include that in our recommendation to City Council, I think that might be, a salutary. But I think that there's a real reason behind owner occupancy. I think when Mr. Schandelmeyer first proposed ADUs and he said, well, I just did it for political reasons. There's a reason why he had to do it for political reasons. And that is because people were afraid of too many short-term rentals. And by God, they were right. And so I think from my point of view, we need to be extremely careful about opening the door to more of them. Now, if this legislation comes back with the proper amendments and even work done on how to make the building codes and so forth more clear, it's passable. I mean, it's discussable, it's passable. I'm not saying how I would vote. I'd have to see it. But as it stands, I can't vote for it. Okay. Does anybody else have anything to say? Mr. Riley?
Sorry. No, I agree with you both. I mean, as it stands, what's written, what's in front of me, I couldn't support it as it is. With Mr. Schandelmeyer's suggestions of today, and had we had more time to kind of look at that and consider it, I would probably be more inclined to support it. But now I just have to kind of digest what Alex is saying, because it's kind of the cart before the horse. If it's a moot point anyway, and it's so cumbersome to get to the point where you can actually build one of these things, and that's because we're getting in the way, or the city's in the way of that, then maybe there's a kind of a step before this step. But I would have to really kind of think about that one a little bit more, and I don't really know what those impediments are because I've never been through that process, and this is kind of new territory for me personally. But as it stands tonight, since what's in front of us and we have to consider what's there, yes, I could not support the legislation as it stands.
Okay.
And I am back, by the way. Sorry, I missed. I dropped due to today. But lastly, I'll just say that my preference really would be for Alderman Schandelmeyer to table this, so that he has those necessary amendments that he wants for us to be able to look at and analyze this. That would honestly be my preference, is for him to table this so that we have the full package to be able to assess. That said, point number two here. Point number two, I have 3 points. Point number two is that I don't always necessarily think that you have to attack the core impediments first, but I do agree with what Commissioner Klein said in terms of that. I don't think even with this change that is being called for, that it will necessarily see a huge increase in what we're trying to get anyway. But and then lastly is that under the current language that we're seeing in front of us, I am in agreement with what I'm hearing, that it sounds like most of you all are as well. That this is the as language, as proposed, as what we're seeing in front of us, is not something that I think that I would want to support.
Okay. We've heard from everybody, and it's been a very intelligent discussion. I thank you for that. I will, as the chair, I'll make a motion that we recommend that the council not approve the legislation in its current form, and additionally that we make the recommendations that the council look very carefully at the construction impediments to building more ADUs, and that we in fact include, and maybe in summaries form, but the public comment of Ms. McCobb in some way. And having said that, made that motion, I look for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
And just while I have the floor here for discussion, we can work out how to, whoever's going to do the findings, we can work out how to include Ms. McCopp's information and how to do that as we iterate on a set of findings.
Okay. It's going to be difficult to get findings done and voted on. August is, for me, August is a difficult month. I'm going a lot of it. And then I have a wedding at the end of it. Not mine. But
I don't know what the timing for this needs to be. Our schedule is, as you mentioned, difficult. I don't know if other people could do, a very short 10-minute meeting just to approve, remotely to approve findings. And because we would do it remote, maybe we could do it on a night that's the only business, and it's not on a regular night that could fit into other people's schedules, just to get this wrapped up, so we could all have whatever summer vacation as you indicate. So
Right.
I'd be open to do that.
I would like to ask our council that she would look into one question, and that is, may we have a scheduled meeting, the sole business of which is to vote on findings, and what the advertising, the notice requirements may be, and so forth. I'd really like to we've never answered that question, as to what it could be. But we can work on that. And if depending on what the answer to that is, we can always send around an email and come up with some dates and do that sort of a thing.
Okay.
All right. Having said all that, I'm now going to call for a vote on the motion, which basically, once again, let me repeat, that we recommend that the council not approve this legislation in its current form, and that the council look seriously at clarifying and streamlining the construction requirements for ADUs. Is that stated? Clarity? Understand? Everybody got it?
Yep.
Got it?
Got
Okay.
it.
All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Is there anybody opposed to that motion? Mr. Cummings, you're still, your hand's been up. Hi.
Sorry.
All right, so unanimously, that motion passes. I'll take a crack at the findings unless somebody else wants to volunteer. Oh, no volunteers? Oh, yeah. All right.
I would, but
You're
probably
away.
wouldn't. I wouldn't get to it for a couple weeks. But if you take a stab at them, I'll happy to.
I'm sure you will.
Jump on it as soon as we can.
You always do. Well, in September, we'll give you all the findings. How's that? All right. Do I hear a motion? Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up? Any kind of business, any kind of thoughts, anything that we should know about? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second.
Wait, I have a quick question. I just
Yes, ma'am.
joined. Are
Yes.
we taking August off? Is that what I understand?
Yes, with the one proviso that if these findings get done, okay, we might send around an email for like a quick virtual meeting, depending on if we can do that, and what kind of notice we need to provide.
Got it.
And
Perfect.
for instance, I don't believe that findings requires a public hearing, in which case I'm not quite sure what notice.
Okay,
but
that sounds great.
Mr. Wood and I will work that out.
Let
But
me-
that-
Thank you.
Let me ask you,
Yes,
Chair.
yes, you can sail the Atlantic. Goodbye. Anything else? Yes.
No, Chair, I just wanted to ask, what would be, you will have already deliberated, someone would have drafted the opinion.
Yes.
What would you need to have just tell me what the meeting would be for?
Simply
To
that
adopt the
everybody
finding.
agree that the opinion, the findings and recommendation actually reflects the meeting and our intent.
And can that be done? How has it been done traditionally, by email? I guess.
No,
No.
we were dissuaded from that. And actually we came up I think a much better solution, which is that it's posted to a Google Drive, which is only available to the commission. People make their comments. They're incorporated by the drafter of the opinion or not, depending. Okay, usually they are. And then that final draft comes up for a vote of approval of the findings. So there's no hearing.
Yeah. See, I don't think you need to vote on approval of the findings. I think
in a public.
you don't need to vote on the findings are summarizing your vote. That's what they should be doing.
Mhm.
And I think they can be sent around and everyone can give their approval for you to sign for them.
Well, that would
There
make
doesn't
it
be a
easier.
discussion because a discussion could get into the merits of it somehow. But there's no, I don't see a reason for a meeting, and I haven't seen another commission do a meeting just to vote on adopting the findings that you've already deliberated on and made a decision on. But we can talk offline about ways to do it. And if you want to do it that way, I certainly will look into that. I'm going to, as you've asked, but I was just wondering what the real purpose would be. Are you going to vote again? You're voting on the language of the opinion, and whether that language reflects the deliberative vote that you've already had. I don't think that's necessarily necessary.
I'm more worried about the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, but you can, I mean, even Kim can send it around and say, it's on the Google Drive, make your comments. And if you didn't make any comments, then, Kim can send it around and say, this is going out unless anybody objects, and go at it that way. But to have a meeting every time you make a decision after deliberation, to have a meeting every time you do the write-up to vote again on whether the write-up is okay, I don't think is necessary, is what I'm saying. It may be overly doing things. I think it's on the Google Drive. Give people an opportunity, commissioners an opportunity to look at it on the Google Drive. If you don't hear from them within that time frame that you give them to, or Kim gives them to look at it, and then you assume it's okay. And she'll say, here's the final, and it's going out on such and such date. And I didn't hear from anyone, so I assume it's okay for the chair to sign. And then they'll have that, that short time to come back and say, wait a minute, whatever. But you're giving them an opportunity to look it over. I don't think there needs to be another vote. If you're going to do another vote, then that is going to trigger a public hearing, because there doesn't need to be a vote.
There won't be not a hearing, but a meeting.
No, I mean, if you're going to vote on the findings, then you're having a.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a public hearing. It would be a public meeting.
Understood.
Okay.
But
let's you and I chat about. Let's you and I chat. Okay.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Wow. If we could set that precedent, that would significantly streamline the process of our business. We've struggled with that, especially when there's something that has a short fuse to it, that we really need to get something back to city council or back to staff, and we've typically had to have another meeting to approve those findings. But if we could do that without having an in-person, a synchronous meeting, boy, that would really streamline our process if that's allowed.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. I'm open. I'm open. I remember in the past feeling like, well, why are we doing this? But
Yeah.
I think that but I also think that the Google Drive has made the process better, much better. It's just much better. And so if we can come up with some way of using that and propelling that into more efficiency, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. We finally got into the 2000s. Great.
It was Mr. Cummings, who's driving across Montana, no doubt, on his way to the next flood.
I would like to also point out, I think Mr. Klein and I both were tag teaming that, but there is a way for us to simply put in the comments, everyone, we can do an @ and then their name, and that calls on them to be able to say, do you agree with the findings here? And then we all just say yes, 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 yes. And that's a way for us to confirm it. And I do agree with Mr. Klein that we could very easily streamline our process that would speed up any kind of deliverables. I think it's great.
All right. You're delegated to set that up.
Okay. No
Or I
worries.
can do that. Easy. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we fully discussed the motion to adjourn, are we ready for a vote? All right. All in favor of adjourning and enjoying the rest of August. Be well.
All right.
Banwa sayonara.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have fun.
Bye.